Hello there, welcome to today's code flow tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about the ID and the class attributes. Let's go. So when talking about the ID and the class attributes, in the previous tutorial we've explored a bit of how to use div and span tags. And in the last tutorial we actually also explored how we can actually, apply the bit of subclasses and some ID to those particular div tag and span tag. So right now let's go back to the document, open the folder website project and open the HTML. We have the main HTML. You can open that with code, the Visual Studio Code. It might take a while, but let's see. Okay, so this is great. We've got our code. So in the last tutorial, we learned about making styling HTML, okay? And we might have used the attribute star, but also we've also talked about the div and the span tags in some few tutorials alone. When we talked about the block and the inline elements, we made use of the ID tag and we learned how to use the ID attribute and also a bit of the class attribute. But if you notice, we didn't actually do much here. So right now we're going to go into details into what the ID tag mean and what the class tag mean. But basically what the class attribute does is that it actually specifies specific names for an element that we want to style. Same thing as the ID tag, okay? So let's learn how to make use of them. And as you know, the first thing we do as normal tradition is to create a comment and two dashes, and you can write making a div, making an ID and class attribute. Quite cool. So making an ID and class attribute. So we're going to actually be stating some examples right here. So first, let's create a p tag, a paragraph tag, and let's write this is a class of its own accord. And let's also create another p tag and let's write this is me identifying something that is different. So let's save this. And right now we've got a bit of a paragraph statement here, and we are going to try and style this. Well, how do we do that? Okay, now we can actually create either a class or an ID for this p tag. It depends on the ones you want to create. But now the next set of instructions is going to help you to know how to style this much more easily. Now remember that in the previous tutorial we've managed to create a bit of a style, a simple style, something related to the style around the head element, the head element itself. So right now we're actually going to create something here and actually use the bit of the style tag right here to style it. I don't want to make use of an external CSS so that you don't get confused. So let's just create something simple. So we're going to create a simple class attribute for this, and I want to name this accord. Okay, and for the p tag right here, I want to create a bit of an ID for it. Sorry, a minute. Please ensure you close the brackets well. And so right in the middle, I want to create an ID. So I want to name this identify. So right here, we've created the specific tag that we can actually use to to style this paragraph and this other paragraph. Now if I save this and we load this with our Google Chrome, it might take a while. I'm sorry about that. Google Chrome, we're going to see what I'm trying to talk about. Random project. So we got this look with the beige background. Now you can see it right here. We have this is a class of its own accord, and this is me identifying something that is different. So you can see all of them actually have black text with a bit of black, and the background is all beige. So right now let's create a bit of a difference. Let's make it look let's say a bit different. So right now we have our class and the ID. Don't forget that your class is accord and your identifier is the ID. Now for us to start classes in HTML or even in CSS, mainly in CSS, to start classes we add dots and the name of the class. But for the ID we use hash and we also add the name of the tag. So right now let's actually do that right here. Let's press enter. Okay, let's create a bit of a space, and we want to style accord. Notice that actually when we actually apply the h1 to the stuff, it affects everything. So basically one thing that your ID and the class are kind of good at doing, same thing as the div tag, is to know to separate your part of the part you want to actually style, or the things that you want to actually apply to a particular HTML element. So that's what we are actually doing right here. So we only want this to be specific for the P class right here, not all P classes, or we only want this to be specific for this particular P class, not this one, not this one, not to affect any other P tag. So we're trying to make a bit of specificity in terms of styling things in HTML and CSS. So right now let's go back to the piece of code we've got right up here, and you can see the style attribute as usual, glowing in all its formal glory. And right now, and as I've said earlier, for classes we use dot by the tag name accord. And we open this open parenthesis, and right here we can type in whatever I want to style this accord in. Now for the other one we have identify. Now how do we do that? So we have this hashtag for only ID classes. So use hashtag to style them, then followed by their names. We have identify and open parenthesis, and that closes it all. So what do we want to style in identify? We have the color. We can decide to style the color of our code. So I want the color to be black. This is quite amazing. And for identify, I want the background color to be a bit blue. And so once I save this, once I save this and we preload this page, we should discover that there's a difference. See, this has changed. Oh, we can't know if this thing is black or not. I'm coming. I didn't really think much about them. Sorry. So let's try and change this to something normal. Sorry, I'm going to have to use my scope of color. Let's change this to aqua. So let's save this, and if we preload this page and we scroll down, we can see that this is a class of its own accord, is in aqua, and this is me identifying something that is different. So if you're asking me that, what would happen if we use this ID and the div tag? I'll show you. If you don't use this ID and the class tag, how would it actually cause some bit of an issue? I'll show you now. So we're actually using a bit of them to actually write stuff like this. If we decide to use just the P tag, just like we've done in earlier tutorials, and we erase this, let's do that. Okay, so let's create the P tag. Let's decide I want to use only the P tag, and we want to use the open parentheses, and we want to come in. Oh, sorry. So we're gonna have to just maybe separate this a bit and close this. We forgot to close this. So right now the P tag, let's add a bit of a color. So I want the color to be let me say blue violet, and let's save this. And we notice that every element that actually has the P tag, they're actually going to be blue violet. Is that color? Blue violet. Let's reload the page, and if we scroll up, we will discover that you see every P element, everything that contains the P tag is actually blue violet. But what we did here by using the class and the ID actually isolated this part, and you see that they are all having their respective colors. the colors that they all want to have. Okay, but since this one's also blue violet, if you ask me, I'll tell you how. The fact that we are styling the color, we only styled the background color of this guy. So for that kind of reason, I mean, if you check it right here, we styled only the background color, not the color. So that means this. We'll learn more about this when you get selectors and inheritance in CSS, when you get to the CSS tutorials. So basically, that's all about the class and the ID. So that's what you can do with the class and with the ID attributes. We'll talk more about the class and the ID attributes when we get to the CSS selectors. So I hope you actually enjoyed a bit of what we just discussed, and also remember that we can actually use div ID. Yeah, let's try a bit of div ID. So I'm going to copy this. Let's copy this and let's paste this, and right here you can write a div, and please let's copy this div, Ctrl X and paste it. Oh my god, that's Ctrl X, and let's paste it right here. So actually we're going to actually have to erase this div tag, this ID tag. Okay, erase it. Now for the div ID, now you can write hello. So basically we have another something here, hello, and we've saved it. So if you go back to our Chrome and we reload this, you can see we have the same word right here, but it is being affected by the p tag. So how do we do this actually? A minute. So our div ID is called hello, and now to represent the ID itself, we can also use the class for the div elements though. We can use it's a class for the div. We can also use the class, but we're using an ID this time around. So let's actually use the hashtag hello and close open parentheses. Then in the middle we can set the color we want. We want the color to be aqua. Okay, so let's save this, and if you go back to our Chrome and we preview this, we'll discover that this doesn't change. Why? Because you see, then everything else deals with inheritance and everything. The fact that even from the first instance, the p tag has been extensively styled. It has been styled itself, so it is still going to apply to the div tag and everything that relates to the div tag. The best way to just actually do this is, if we actually say, okay, we want to add a bit of some things to. Oh, sorry. So actually, okay. Another way we can actually try and select something to make sure that the p tag doesn't affect it. If we decide to actually select only p tags that have a specific class in it, okay. And so how do we do that? One thing. Let's first delete this, so we can actually make sure that the things we are doing are visible at the moment. So let's save this, and if we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, you can see that this has finally changed to the aqua we are looking for. I told you all about CSS inheritance. We'll talk about that in some few tutorials to come. So right now, let's go back to the tag and let's try and create something with a class. So right now, let's copy this. Let's copy this and let's paste this right here. Okay, and let's call this identify. This is me, that is different. Okay, let's save it like that. So now we want to identify everything. So let's change this to class. Let's make use of the class for this guy. Let's change the class, anything that is p class identify, and also let's set anything that is, let's set this one to also a class. Let's set this to, sorry, oh shit, sorry. Set this to a class, and you can write identify. Now these are basically two different statements, but I want to show you the fact that we can actually use the class tag, okay, to tag particular, almost everything that is actually having the class identify should actually have the property. Let's have this one to be an h6 element, so that I can show that this actually works on different HTML elements. Okay, let's save this, and we have not actually applied the tag. Remember that the name of our class is identify, so we use dot identify. Now if we actually, let's make use of dot identify, okay, and we'll add this open open parentheses, and let's close it. We're gonna have, let's change the color of class identify to aquamarine, and let's save this. And once we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, you can see that it is it is in aquamarine, same thing as this guy here. Okay, so this guy and this guy, they are both in aquamarine. You can see they're both in aquamarine, and so for that kind of reason, that shows you the fact that we can actually style anything that is, if a class is having the same name, we can style them all together. You can see they have an H6 element and P, and we're able to even style them together. Okay, so that's actually all about the the ID and the class tag. So in next tutorial, we're going to talk more about HTML quotations and styles, and finally the iframe element. So let's see how this goes. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.